Hello everyone, I'm Anas Al-Ubaidi, and the topic or the title of this lecture or session is Roles and Responsibilities in Clinical Trial Management, CTM, ICH International Council for Harmonization, GCP Good Clinical Practice. So, the topic or the title for this lecture or session is about roles and responsibilities in clinical trial management, ICH GCP, and it is within the chapter. It is a part within the chapter that is about introduction to clinical research and regulatory frameworks, and of course, it is part of the advanced ICH Good Clinical Practice certification course program by CCRPS. Introduction. So introduction to CTM clinical trial management. Clinical trial management, CTM, is a complex process that involves overseeing the execution of clinical trials. The success of a trial depends on the effective collaboration of various professionals, each responsible for specific aspects of the study. Clinical trial management, CTM, encompasses the planning, implementation, monitoring, and final reporting of clinical research studies. Every participant in this process, every participant who is involved in this process of CTM clinical trial management, from sponsors to investigators, principal investigators, plays a critical role in ensuring the trial is conducted ethically, safely, and in compliance with the regulatory standards. Now, the key stakeholders in clinical trial management, CTM sponsor. As a sponsor is the entity responsible for initiating, managing, financing a clinical trial. Sponsors can be pharmaceutical companies, research organizations, or academic institutions. Investigators or principal investigators or investigator or principal investigator, PI, the primary individual responsible for conducting the trial at a particular site. Investigators ensure that the trial is conducted according to the protocol and regulatory standards. IRB, Institutional Review Board / the other name Ethics Committee, EC, or Independent Ethics Committee, IEC. So IRB or IEC, IRB, Institutional Review Board, IEC, Independent Ethics Committee. An independent committee responsible for reviewing the trial protocol to ensure that it adheres to ethical standards and protects participants' rights and welfare. Regulatory authorities, governmental agencies such as the FDA in USA, EMA in European Union, Health Canada in Canada, or MHRA, MHRA in United Kingdom, UK, or for instance TGA in Australia, and so forth, which approve the trial protocol and ensure compliance with regulatory standards and throughout the trial. So the regulatory authorities, governmental agencies, and examples we mentioned again, FDA in USA, EMA in European Union, in EU, or Health Canada in Canada, and many other examples similar to these agencies, governmental agencies. Clinical Research Associate, CRA, for Clinical Research Associate, monitors clinical trials to ensure that they are conducted according to the approved protocol, regulatory requirements, and GCP Good Clinical Practice standards. Key points: roles and responsibilities. Sponsor responsibilities. The sponsor is the entity that takes on the largest burden of responsibility in clinical trial management. The sponsor's duties include trial design and protocol development. The sponsor designs the clinical trial and develops the protocol outlining the trial's methodology, objectives, and procedures. Example, a pharmaceutical company designing a clinical trial to test the efficacy of a new drug. Regulatory submissions and approvals. The sponsor submits the trial protocol to regulatory bodies for approval and ensures compliance with local laws and regulations. Example, the sponsor submits an IND investigation new drug application to the FDA in USA prior to starting a clinical trial. Funding and budgeting. Sponsors are responsible for providing the financial resources to cover trial costs, including site fees, investigator fees, and participant compensation. Monitoring trial progress. The sponsor ensures proper monitoring mechanisms are in place to track the trial's progress and address issues that arise. Example, the sponsor conducts regular teleconferences with the clinical research team to ensure timelines are met. Data management and reporting. Sponsors manage data collection, analysis, and reporting, ensuring compliance with good clinical practice (GCP). Example, data is collected from clinical sites and submitted to the sponsor for review and final reporting. Investigator responsibilities. The investigator is the principal researcher, principal investigator at each trial site. Key responsibilities include informed consent process. The investigator ensures that informed consent is obtained from all participants, explaining the trial's risks and benefits. Example, before enrolling a participant or a subject, the investigator reviews the consent form and answers any questions that this potential subject or potential participant prior to enroll or prior to participating might ask questions, and the investigator or the principal investigator should take the responsibility to answer or address these questions. Adherence to the protocol. Investigators are responsible for ensuring the study is conducted according to the approved protocol, including patient inclusion, exclusion criteria, and dosing regimens. Example, an investigator must ensure that participants are enrolled based on the trial's inclusion criteria such as age and health condition. Participant safety. Ensuring participant safety throughout the trial is paramount. Investigators or principal investigators must monitor participants for AEs, adverse events, and report serious adverse events as AEs to the sponsor and regulatory authorities. Example, if a participant experiences an adverse reaction to the investigational product IP or study medication SM, the investigator, the PI, the principal investigator, must immediately report it. Data collection and documentation. Investigators are responsible for accurate data recording and ensuring the trial records are complete and maintained. Example, the investigator ensures that case report forms, CRFs, are accurately filled out for each participant. And here is a diagram on investigator responsibilities in clinical trials. Clinical Research Associate, CRA responsibilities. The CRA, the Clinical Research Associate, is responsible for monitoring the trial to ensure that the trial is being conducted in compliance with the protocol, GCP, and regulatory requirements. Their key duties include site monitoring. The CRA visits clinical trial sites to ensure adherence to the protocol and monitor the progress of the trial. Example, a CRA visits a site to review CRF case report forms, check the inventory of the investigational product IP, and assess the qualifications of the study staff. Data verification. The CRA verifies the accuracy and consistency of data collected during the trial, ensuring that all required data is captured. Example, the CRA cross-checks data from CRF with source documentation, with the site's source documentation. The site that is conducting the trial for the sponsor, they have their own source documentation. So it's up to the CRA to cross-check data in between the CRFs, the case report forms, and the source documentations for that particular site that the CRA is visiting in order to check for the data that is matchable between both CRFs and source documents to ensure completeness and accuracy. Training and support. The CRA provides training to site staff on protocol requirements, GCP, good clinical practice guidelines, and proper documentation practices. Example, a CRA trains a new investigator on how to handle participant enrollment and documentation. And here is a diagram on Clinical Research Associate responsibilities, CRA responsibilities. IRB, Institutional Review Board, Ethics Committee, or IEC independent ethics committee responsibilities. The IRB or ethics committee plays an essential role in reviewing and approving the clinical trial from an ethical standpoint. Their responsibilities include protocol review. The IRB/EC or IEC reviews the trial protocol to ensure it aligns with ethical guidelines and safeguards participant rights or subject rights. Example, an IRB reviews a trial protocol for a new cancer treatment to ensure that risks to participants are minimized and that informed consent is obtained. Ongoing monitoring. The IRB/EC is responsible for the continuous monitoring of the trial, ensuring that ethical standards are upheld throughout the study. Example, the IRB regularly reviews adverse event reports to ensure participant safety. Regulatory authorities' responsibilities. Regulatory authorities ensure that clinical trials are conducted in accordance with national regulations and ICH GCP standards. Their key duties include trial approval, as regulatory authorities approve clinical trial protocols before they can be initiated. Example, the FDA in USA reviews and approves the IND, investigational new drug application for a clinical trial to begin in the US. In the United States. Inspections and audits. Regulatory bodies perform inspections of clinical trial sites to ensure compliance with GCP and ethical standards. Example, the FDA inspects a trial site to ensure proper informed consent procedures are followed and that adverse events AEs are reported. Monitoring compliance. They monitor the trial's progress and ensure ongoing compliance with the regulatory framework, including safety reporting and data integrity. Example, the EMA in European Union European Medicines Agency reviews periodic safety update reports (PSUR) to ensure that the investigational product IP is safe or study medication SM is safe for participants or for subjects. Next, we have the summary tables. Here we have table on roles of key stakeholders in clinical trial management (CTM), table on sponsor responsibilities, table on investigator responsibilities, table on clinical research associate CRA responsibilities. Then we have the MCQs, multiple choice questions, in order to revise what we have covered through this lecture. Question 1. Which of one of the following is not a responsibility of the sponsor in clinical trial management? So developing the trial protocol is involved, it is one of the responsibilities. Ensuring participant safety, it is one of the responsibilities. Monitoring clinical sites, it is one of the responsibilities of the sponsor. Now, C, approving the informed consent form, ICF, the ICF. So C is not a responsibility of the sponsor, but it is a responsibility of the IRB or IEC, the Institutional Review Board or Independent Ethics Committee, IEC. So C is the answer, as C is not one of the responsibilities of the sponsor. So while the sponsor is responsible for developing the trial protocol, the investigator and ethics committee typically handle informed consent approval. So the ethics committee is the one that approves the ICF. The investigator is the one who handle or process the informed consent with the subjects or participants. But the approval is by the ethics committee or IRB, Institutional Review Board. Question 2. What is the primary role of an investigator or PI, principal investigator, in a clinical trial? Would be C, to conduct the trial at the site and ensure protocol adherence, as the investigator is primarily responsible for conducting the trial and ensuring that participants or subjects are enrolled and treated according to the protocol. Question 3. Which one of the following activities is performed by the clinical research associate, CRA? Would be C, monitor clinical trial sites to ensure compliance, as CRAs are responsible for monitoring clinical sites, ensuring the trial is conducted according to the protocol and regulatory standards. Question 4. What is the main function of the IRB, Institutional Review Board, or IEC, Independent Ethics Committee? would be B, to ensure that the trial protocol complies with ethical standards. So the IRB reviews and approves the trial protocol to ensure that it adheres to ethical guidelines and protects participants. Question 5. Which of the following is the responsibility of regulatory authorities like EMA in European Union, FDA in USA, PMDA in Japan, and so forth? So regulatory authorities during clinical trials would be B, conducting site visits to monitor protocol compliance through audits or inspections. So B is the answer. As regulatory authorities are responsible for ensuring that trials comply with regulatory standards and often conduct site inspections or audits to verify this. And here we come to end of this lecture. Thank you very much and goodbye.